If the juice ain't worth the squeeze, the juice won't taste like this. Welcome to Jupiter's Juice. I am your host, Marcus, and fellow juice master, always keeping it 100%. Fresh squeezed organic juice just for you. Our authority in life is validated by our experiences. One way to express your authority is by using your voice. This podcast is an offering of the juicy ways to reconnect with yourself, to find your own voice, asking to be heard. The juice tastes best when you can savor every sip. So find a quiet place, in a comfortable position, where you can be fully present. No distractions. Give yourself permission for the transmission of healing available here. Now that you've found your quiet seat, come in and take a sip, because the juice is sweet. Today's episode is coming to you from the jungle of Hawaii, and we are going to be talking about calling in help. Calling in help can be one of the most difficult things for us to do. And many of us, myself included, thrive on hyper-independence. And as I've moved through this journey, I've realized that the hyper-independence is a trauma response. And when I started asking for help, things started to get easier. And so now I'm going to share with you about how I started to open myself up to receiving help and actually calling in a mentor and a guide to help me through this process. In 2020, just before the pandemic hit, I went to Peru, and I was on an ayahuasca retreat in this beautiful village called Sashamanai. It's in the middle of the Sacred Valley. And I was invited by a friend who I had only met one time, and something was calling me there. And my only intention for this trip was to see myself as others see me, to experience myself as others experience me. And at the time, I was moving through a lot of shifts and changes in my friendship groups, in my personal self, in my job. I was being met with a lot of resistance. And so I decided to go on this trip, and this is what I wanted to see. The curator of the trip, her name is Simone, and she has a company called Soma Journeys, SOMAH. And it was there where I met her in Peru. And I remember prior to this trip, a few months earlier, I was calling out to the universe saying, I want a guide. I need a guide. I need someone to help me navigate this. It's too much. It's too fucking much to do on your own. And it's too much to me to do on my own. I didn't want to do that. I was tired of doing everything on my own. So I arrive, and the individual that had invited me actually ended up being my biggest teacher. And little did I know that I would meet my biggest teacher and my soul guide on this trip. And so I'm touring the facility and the land and settling into my space and just, getting the footing of the layout of where I am. And there's this beautiful garden. It's very well manicured, but it looks so natural. The flowers are blooming. There's lots of butterflies and hummingbirds, just full of life. It's almost like the flowers and the plants were speaking to me already. And I remember from a distance, I saw Simone. And I saw her walking through the garden. And in Peru during the summer, it's quite rainy. It's very mysterious. It's foggy. It's very beautiful and enchanting. And so I see this tall, slender, blonde-haired woman just making her way through the path of the garden. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, how do I know her? How do I know this woman? I was in such awe of her beauty, and I had this feeling inside of me that I felt very safe to be where she was. And so my time went on there, and as things developed with my biggest teacher and doing plant medicine and pushing myself into more vulnerable spaces, I ended up really confiding in Simone in a lot of things that were moving through me during that trip. And at the end of the 10 days, I felt like I was great. I had met some great people. I had some beautiful experiences. I had my first deep dives of plant medicine. I met grandmother ayahuasca, and I met grandfather Wachuma, and I met the combo frog. And so at the end of it, I was feeling very, very empowered and a lot of release. And, they say the biggest part of a plant medicine journey is the integration, not necessarily the ceremony. And that was very much that for me. And so at the end of these retreats, or any plant medicine or sacred medicine ceremony that you do, there's always, and should always be, an offering of integration to work one-on-one or in a group to help you navigate everything that you experience and will experience and unfold as the medicine continues to work through you. And so about 4 months later, the pandemic is in full effect. I got this calling to call Simone, and I was ready. And I was ready because there was so much that was moving through me, and I had such a powerful experience with her, being in such a sacred place, and I felt very safe. And so I started working with her. I worked with her for the better part of the rest of that year in 2020, once a week about. And that may seem like a lot to some people, but it was a really, really, really life-changing investment that I made on myself, because I trusted and allowed my guide to guide me, which is what I asked for. And so for the next 12 to 18 months, and coming up on even till now, I have worked with her and still work with her. And I'm forever grateful, because I put that out into the universe to have a guide come to me, and she appeared. And the cool part about this story is I had a palm reader read my palm in October of 2020, and Simone came up, and the palm reader told me that she had been in my life now 3 times, once as my mom, and once also as my best friend in a war, and that she always comes into my life to guide me, and now she's in this time as my soul guide. And I share this story with you because as someone who takes care of people for a living and who is a giver by nature, it can be very difficult for people like us to ask for help. And it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen even in 2 nights. Not 2 weeks. Maybe 2 months. Maybe 2 years. It's a process. And it's a learning process. And it's also a process in which you push past a lot of fear. Because it's very vulnerable to ask someone for help. Especially when you're used to doing things all on your own. And what I found through allowing myself to ask for help and allowing myself to receive instead of always just give, I found that it created more balance. Because when you're giving, it's a very masculine energy. And you're not receiving, there's an imbalance there. The feminine energy is not allowed to expand or be open. And we all have a masculine and feminine side within us. And so the more I started to allow myself to receive help and ask for it, people started showing up. And it wasn't just Simone. My friendships and my relationships started to get better. Because I was no longer holding this resentment of, I do all these things for people and people never do them for me. It's because I never asked. And that might be hard for many of you out there. It might trigger you in a lot of ways. For whatever reason, you didn't get the help that you needed when you were younger, or you've been shut down when you were older. Maybe you were in a relationship that wasn't so kind and helpful to you. But I know from my own experience that asking for help, be it supernatural or physical, it's always come to me. And if we just trust that the help is coming, then it makes our life and our journey a whole lot easier. And there's a wise saying that Buddha said. He said, suffering is a choice. And I do not believe that in life we are meant to suffer. We are meant to face challenges. And we are meant to move through difficult times, different growing periods, growing pains. But we're not meant to suffer. And so I really believe that suffering is a choice. And one way to not suffer is to ask for help. So I encourage you this week to find one thing that you need help on and ask for it and see what happens. See what happens when you open yourself up to receive. The juice is telling me that you will receive more than you anticipate or that you expected. Thank you so much for listening today. And I hope that this story and this sharing of my experience and asking for help will inspire you and allow you to open yourself up to receiving all the love and all the guidance that you deserve. Until next time, stay juicy.